Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to meticulously deconstruct a truly tragic human trafficking case study to expose the hidden mechanics of modern digital deception. We so often think of scams as these obvious, clumsy traps, but today, we are looking at a highly sophisticated international syndicate that built a completely flawless digital illusion. It was an illusion so convincing that it ensnared two young women, Priya and Angelie Sharma. We're going to break down exactly how this trap was engineered from the ground up, step by step.
Just by looking at the stark contrast here, we instantly see the brutal, terrifying effectiveness of this trap. On one side, you have the glamorous promise made to these Mumbai textile workers, a lucrative opportunity that would literally change their families' lives forever. But then, look at the other side, the horrifying actual destination, a fortified, inescapable compound in the middle of the desert. The sheer distance between these two realities is the absolute core of our analysis today. I mean, how in the world does a syndicate successfully bridge that massive gap without triggering their victims' natural survival instincts? Let's break down the architecture of this deception.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, constructing the fake reality and what's known as the knowledge gap strategy.
Notice the incredibly precise calibration of the bait here, $50,000. Now, to Priya and Angelie, who were sharing a tiny, modest two-room space in Mumbai and working grueling, exhausting hours in a textile factory, this wasn't just a simple paycheck. To put that into perspective, this represented more than 5 years of factory wages for them. The syndicate actually reached out to Angelie on Instagram. They claimed they were looking for authentic Indian women to act as cultural representatives at an exclusive event for a wealthy sheikh in Dubai. By specifically targeting a dreamer like Angelie and offering a sum that promised total financial freedom for their struggling family back in Jaipur, the scammers engineered a scenario where the victims absolutely wanted to believe the lie. But as we all know, wanting to believe just isn't enough, right? The syndicate still had to manufacture the proof.
And that brings us to this absolutely crucial concept right here, the knowledge gap. This is the calculated delta, the intentional space between the glamorous social proof presented to the victim online and the hidden malicious reality constructed by the scammers. Think about it. Because the sisters were physically in India and this supposed agency was way over in Dubai, they couldn't exactly just walk into an office to verify things. They were completely forced to rely entirely on the fabricated evidence presented to them through their screens. And honestly, this is a vulnerability we all share when we're operating online. The syndicate simply exploited this physical distance to completely manipulate the narrative. Let's see exactly how they built that digital ecosystem.
When Priya, the more skeptical older sister, tried to do her own research on this fake agency named Elite Arabian Models, this is the elaborate trap she walked into. Step 1. Paid publications. The scammers actually hosted fake articles on obscure fashion blogs just to create this perfect veneer of legitimacy. Step 2. Bot networks. The agency's Instagram account was loaded with hundreds of thousands of followers, plus comments from supposedly real girls thanking them for these amazing opportunities. But it was all meticulously constructed fake profiles. And then, Step 3. Deep social engineering. A talent manager going by the name Layla Hassan conducted video calls with them, and she called from what looked like this gleaming, professional, high-rise office. In reality, it was just a co-working space she rented by the hour. They didn't just tell a lie, they built a fully immersive digital ecosystem specifically designed to bypass the sisters' natural skepticism.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, execution and absolute isolation. This is where we see the escalating stakes of the trap.
This timeline tracks the structural methods the syndicate used to instantly strip away the victim's physical autonomy. And the execution here was chillingly precise. At 7:30 a.m., Priya, Angelie, and two other victims they happened to meet at the airport, Nisha and Kavya, cleared Dubai immigration using completely standard tourist visas. By 8 a.m., in the arrival area, a man in a black suit immediately confiscated their passports, claiming it was just standard procedure for sponsored visitors. Boom! Within 30 minutes, they were loaded into a black van with completely tinted windows, totally isolating them visually from their surroundings as they were driven far away from the city center. By 10 a.m., they arrived. But not at some luxury marina. They arrived at a remote desert location. Step by step, hour by hour, the stakes escalated from a financial risk to absolute mortal peril.
Once they were trapped in this desert compound, the horrifying truth set in. The women realized they definitely weren't models hired for a cultural event. They were prisoners. The architecture of the trap had shifted instantly from a digital illusion into a physical lockdown. They were 40 kilometers deep into the desert, held in a modern, austere building. Get this, it was surrounded by 4-meter-high walls topped with barbed wire. Inside, they were separated into Spartan rooms where every single window was secured with solid steel bars and heavy industrial bolts. And their mobile phones, entirely useless. There was zero signal, and all the Wi-Fi networks were heavily encrypted. That flawless digital trap had successfully delivered them straight into a physical cage.
This brings us to a terrifying quote from the leader of the syndicate, who was actually taunting Priya. He said, "You are 40 kilometers from the nearest town, surrounded by desert. Even if you manage to leave, where would you go?" Following a horrific dinner party where these women were literally presented to wealthy clients, Priya made a desperate, doomed attempt to fight back. She actually smashed a champagne bottle against one of her captors. But the grim reality of their physical isolation was absolute. The punishment for her resistance, and for Kavya, who was pleading for her life, was just unimaginable. They were dragged to a basement and then outside into the freezing desert dawn. The source material reveals that all 4 women were brutally executed and buried in unmarked graves right there in the sand.
Let's dive into Section 3, why these scams succeed and how they are exploiting a massive legal void. This table perfectly maps out the chilling jurisdictional void that these syndicates completely rely on to get away with this. On the left side, we see the family's increasingly desperate actions. You have Aunt Meera in Jaipur going straight to the police. You have Kavya's father, a retired professor in Bangalore, spending his entire life savings flying to Dubai and trying to navigate the embassies. But then look at the right side, the systemic roadblocks. Because the victims legally entered the country on standard tourist visas and then simply vanished, the local Dubai authorities had absolutely no official record of foul play. The families just hit this massive wall of bureaucracy. Without a crime scene, without bodies, and with the women seemingly leaving of their own free will on a tourist visa, cross-border jurisdictions just completely stall out.
As the source material powerfully notes, no bodies, no evidence, no jurisdiction. Just 4 more names in a growing statistic of missing women. And to stall the families and the authorities even further, the traffickers utilized this truly horrific tactic. They kept the victims' stolen cell phones and sent delayed text messages back to India months later. These texts claimed the girls were just traveling and finding new opportunities. This completely manufactured a false trail. It successfully stalled any initial panic or investigation until the trail went completely cold. By the time the police were actually willing to listen, there was absolutely nothing left to find.
And the truly horrific scale of this trap extends far, far beyond just one single case. Conservative estimates from NGOs point to over 200 Indian women missing under very similar circumstances in just a 3-year span. Plus, thousands more are unaccounted for from the Philippines, Ethiopia, and Nepal. But what makes this so incredibly impossible to track is the digital cleanup. Once the physical evidence is buried out there in the sand, the digital evidence is simply deleted. The elite Arabian model's website, taken down. The Instagram profile, wiped clean. Layla Hassan, or whoever that actually was, just vanished from the internet, as if she never even existed. The digital trap is instantly dismantled, which allows the syndicate to build a brand new one and start the vicious cycle all over again.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. The Sharma sisters were caught in an expertly engineered system that literally weaponized their own hopes against them. Ultimately, they were defeated not just by men in the desert, but by that devastating gap between digital illusions and real-world jurisdictional realities. As long as syndicates can seamlessly fabricate professional realities online and operate in the blind spots of international law, these traps are going to remain. So knowing exactly how precisely these digital snares are built, how can we better protect the most vulnerable from these deadly traps before they ever take that fateful flight?